There's a lot I'm loving in Avowed right now, the new game from Obsidian. The combat is a fun, snappy take on first-person fantasy combat that lets you dual wield kind of anything and experiment with environmental effects. The world is vibrant and mushroom filled and uniquely crafted compared to your typical sword and board game. And the mystery, it's compelling. The story is a cool thing as it unravels. And well, there's Garrus.
A lot of disputes arise because people here have a strong aversion to being told what to do.
Sorry, Kai. But something that has been jumping out to me as I parkour my way across the living lands is all the dang text. Avowed is your classic first-person RPG, maybe most popularized by Bethesda's Elder Scrolls games. Oddly, Avowed shares more in common with Oblivion than Morrowind or Skyrim, which in my book is a compliment. I've always been a fan of text-heavy games, whether it's full-on visual novels or typical RPGs like Baldur's Gate or, dare I say, Starfield. The more I play these games, I find myself spending more time reading blurbs from the in-world novels and textbooks than slaying goblins or whatever. Most of the books in these games fade away into the recesses of my memory. They help shape the world and give color to the history you never get to experience, but the contents themselves fade away. There are some others that break through. The Lusty Argonian comes to mind, and remain in my and the internet's memory over decades later. As I play more of Avowed, I'm realizing that what Obsidian is doing with text is something more than RPGs or games really do normally. I think the really genius part of Avowed is that it makes reading a role-playing choice. Avowed is a typical RPG. You have skills, and then those skills can inform the things you say in dialogue with other characters. For all the sword swinging and spell slinging, Avowed is a very talky game. So you're reading a lot. And like most fantasy worlds, pretty quickly you find yourself reading a lot of proper nouns. You have two main forms of dealing with proper nouns that I think is really clever in Avowed. The first is pretty obvious, taking a page from Amazon Prime Video's X-ray feature, or maybe more familiar to people in Final Fantasy XVI, Avowed allows you to pause a dialogue sequence at any time and pull up a short encyclopedia entry on the Deerwood or Adir, allowing you to quickly gain the context you need on what a character is saying. The wiki system is really cool from a player perspective. It lets you in on some important world building, but I think the more impressive part is how it combines with the dialogue system. You talk to a lot of people in Avowed, and most conversations are about the latest weird thing to happen on the living lands. As a recent arrival, role-playing your envoy isn't just about the choices you make, it's about what you know. Sure, you can play as a well-read, learned envoy who already knows the lay of the land before they arrive, using the in-game wiki to bring the player along and getting up to speed on what the envoy already knows. Or you can use the dialogue system to dig deeper into something a character says. In most conversations, there's a clear, let's move the conversation forward dialogue option, and then there's the, tell me more about that option. Nothing new to the genre, but in tandem with the wiki system, I think we start to see something magical. For example, in one dialogue sequence, a character mentions the Saints' War, a world event that occurred in the Deadfire region of the world. There's a few things you can do here if you're playing as a character that knows what the Saints' War is, but you as a player haven't played Pillars of Eternity Deadfire. You can open up the wiki, get a good idea of what the Saints' War was, and then move on with the conversation. But let's say your envoy was born after the Saints' War, or is just generally uninterested in worldly affairs. You can roleplay this out, asking the probing questions someone who is in the know would never ask. Knowledge becomes an aspect of roleplaying. Asking the follow-up question isn't a fourth wall breaking act, it becomes a piece of characterization for your envoy. Using text as a role-playing device in Avowed isn't just relegated to conversations or inline wikis either. Take a look, it's in the books. As you explore the living lands, you come across notes, journals, and books peppering the walls of municipal buildings and dungeons alike. Unlike something like Skyrim or Oblivion, you won't really find many repeats. Instead, the historical tomes, the body novels, and technical manuals are pieces of in-game lore tailored to their owner. The Adiran Ambassador in Paradise has shelves lined with books about Adiran custom or territorial disputes, while the rumored to be ancient oracle living in a nearby dungeon has a library brimming with soul magic manuals and books detailing the lands he traveled to hundreds of years ago. You can learn a lot about someone by simply skimming their library, and the shelves of Avowed are no different. These books are optional, clearly marked, but not necessary to advance the story. Hunting around dungeons and flooded libraries is rewarded with bespoke books only found in that location, each snippet of text lending character to the location or person who owned them. While hunting for books in a Bethesda RPG will sometimes yield a skill point, the books in Avowed give you what books in real life provide: knowledge. Does that sketchy character seem like they have ulterior motives? It may be foreshadowed in their library if you dig deep enough. Together, the wiki entries, dialogue options, and tailored libraries allow you to roleplay your envoy as you see fit, whether you're playing a chatty character or a bookish one. You're ultimately using these three systems to discover shades of the same information, but I love how fluid it is to choose between them in play. Most of the time, I'm not even thinking about it. Like I said, there is a lot that I am loving about Avowed, but it's these little touches that take something that could have been just another one of those games and elevates it. I mean, it reminds me a lot of the immersive sim 3 paths to enter a room style of game design, except it's about reading. How cool is that? Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow.